My name is Don K. Preston. I am the president of Preterist Research Institute of Ardmore, Oklahoma. Well, I want to get back to our examination of 1 Corinthians chapter 15 this morning. And when I left you, we were looking at Paul's statement of 1 Corinthians 15, 53, and 54, where he says, this corruptible must put on incorruptibility, this mortal must put on immortality. So when this corruptible shall put on incorruptibility, and when the mortal shall put on immortality, then shall be brought to pass the saying, death is swallowed up in victory. I pointed out to you that Paul uses the Greek word endusaste from enduo, and he uses it 4 times in these 2 verses, indicating to us that this motif of putting off and putting on is incredibly important. Now, please be sure to go back to the previous video. I think that number is 118, and see how Romans chapter 6, although it does not use the word enduo, the motif of putting off the old man, putting off the body of flesh, putting off the body of sin, which is exactly what Paul is talking about in 1 Corinthians 15. See how Paul is emphasizing that first in Romans 6, and yet it's more than obvious he has nothing whatsoever to do about putting off a physical body. Nothing. Well, I want to share with you this morning the continuance of that concept. Only this time, Paul definitely uses the word enduo or endusaste. It is Ephesians chapter 4, where Paul, I'm going to read verses 17 to 24. This I say therefore, and testify in the Lord, that you do not walk any longer as the Gentiles walk in the futility of their mind, having the understanding darkened, being alienated from the life of God because of the ignorance that is in them, because of the blindness of their heart, who being past feeling, have given themselves over to lewdness, to work uncleanliness with greediness. But you have not so learned Christ, if indeed you have heard him and been taught by him, as the truth is in Jesus, that you put off, concerning your former conversation, the old man, which grows corrupt according to deceitful lust, and that you be renewed in the spirit of your mind, and that you put on the new man, which was created according to God in true righteousness and holiness. Now, I want you to notice what Paul does here. He talks about the old man. That old man is corrupt. He uses the exact same word that he uses in 1 Corinthians 15 for putting off corruption. Phthora. As I shared with you in earlier videos, phthora is a word that is used predominantly to speak not of bodily flesh, not of the human physicality, but of moral corruption. That is clearly how Paul is using it in Ephesians chapter 4. The old man is corrupt according to deceitful lust. Likewise, Peter, in his epistle, 2 Peter chapter 2, 2 Peter chapter 1, talks about escaping the corruption that is in the world through lust. Well, they hadn't escaped biological corruption. And so here we have both Paul and Peter talking about putting off the old man. Well, what's the old man? Well, according to Paul in 1 Corinthians 15, it's the image of Adam that is corrupt. Now, notice this, that you put on, endusaste. That's the word that Paul uses in 1 Corinthians 15 4 times. Now, I want you to notice this. In Ephesians 4, putting off the old man, putting on the new man is clearly a responsibility. It is something that a person does by obedience to the gospel of Jesus Christ. It is not something that is done to them without their participation. Put off the old man. That's a command for them to do. Now, we are told that resurrection in 1 Corinthians 15 has nothing to do with man's prerogative, man's decision. That's not true. As I've shared with you, 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 49, Paul says, as we have, past tense, borne the image of the man of dust. Notice the parallel with Ephesians chapter 4, the old man, corruption. The New King James says, we shall also bear. Sorry, as I pointed out to you, the best translations, the best Greek text say, let us bear. In other words, just like Ephesians chapter 4, in 1 Corinthians 15:49, Paul is placing, may I use the term, responsibility for bearing the image of the new man on the believer. Now, does that mean it's a work whereby we deserve something? No. But it doesn't negate the reality that there is a responsibility of the believer to put off the old man, put off the image of the first man, and to put on the image of Christ. Now, folks, listen to me. If Paul in 1 Corinthians 15 is talking about an end-of-time event in which God, through His sovereignty, snaps His finger as it was, and the dead, who have no choice in the decision, no participation in determining whether or not to be raised. No. Paul, in 1 Corinthians 15, is not talking about something that is an act of God about which and in which the believer has no cognitive choice. It is rather something that, just like Ephesians 4, just like Colossians 3, which we'll look at tomorrow, Paul says, you must do this. And that kind of removes it from the realm of the traditional view of resurrection. In the meantime, we'll see you on the flip side with more on 1 Corinthians 15.